Hi, my name is Lydia Kostopoulos, and I'm a strategy and emerging technologies advisor with a deep passion for body data tracking and human performance. All in the pursuit of feeling great and having as much energy as possible to pursue the things that fill me with joy and purpose. This interview series is about discovering how others have created and are curating their personal healthy aging protocol, one that aligns with their values and the person that they desire to be and become. I hope you find it to be of interest. Let's dive in.
Hi, Aastha. I'm so excited to talk to you and hear all about your healthy aging protocol that you've designed yourself. First, would it be possible to just kind of like introduce yourself, just like say who you are, what you're doing, and yeah, go ahead.
For sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you as well, and excited you're doing this series to inspire other people to be healthier. So I am the founder of Live Longer World, which is a longevity newsletter and a podcast. Through my podcast, I interview scientists who are studying the biology of aging. So they're at the frontier of aging science and longevity science, and really trying to figure out, can we live longer, but also can we extend our health span, which is be healthier for longer? And then through my newsletter, that's all focused on practical longevity tips that people can follow on a day-to-day basis. And I also have a column called Live Longer Weekly, which curates a lot of longevity tips from some of the experts in the world. So it's all about just starting small, like a few things you can do here and there in your day, just in your week, and take actions week by week to improve your health and longevity.
Well, I'm a follower, and so I definitely love what you're putting out. And I'm just curious, like what made you want to do that? Like, did you wake up one day and say, I want to read all the longevity books that are out there? Like, what? And I want to tell everybody else about this. Like, how did it start?
Yeah. So, I do have weird dreams and I wake up and do stuff, but this is not how this started. I was actually back in, so I've always been like a health and fitness nut. I grew up playing basketball. And I started working out a lot more sometime in like 2016, which was more weight training. And I'm also vegetarian. So back then I was looking for healthy ways to consume more protein. I just didn't like my like regular whey protein as much back then. So I was like in my kitchen mixing up all these recipes and trying to come up with like a healthy version of a protein spread. Long story short, in that process, I realized that like, this consumer product could be positioned as a ketogenic product. But in that process, I started researching a lot more about ketogenic diets and the science behind it and how it evolved to help people with epilepsy and stroke, for example. And I was kind of blown away because I was like, wow, there's all this really interesting science behind, health and longevity. And through that, I think I just started reading up a lot on the internet, following some of the popular longevity podcasts, and came to understand that there's this whole science behind aging and longevity, and scientists are working on this really exciting field of slowing aging for people. It's not just this natural process it is a natural process, but it's not something that cannot be controlled. We can control it. First of all, through just healthy lifestyle measures. And then, of course, like hopefully there's some therapies that come about. And I was just intrigued to learn. I was very curious. I kept diving deeper. I made a lot of changes to my own lifestyle and started feeling much better. So I was like, there's definitely something to it. And then eventually I wanted to understand the whole science behind aging. So I was like, the best way to do it is just to interview scientists on my podcast. And that's how Live Longer World came about, initially to educate other people who also want to bring about lifestyle changes and feel a lot more energetic. And then it was the podcast to go into the whole scientific nitty-gritties.
Well, you've come a long way because this year you released your personal healthy aging protocol, and it's got a long list of things. And so you've got the exercise component, you've got the food and supplementation component, you've got the sleep, and you've got the oral health. I was really excited to see the oral health part. And then you've got happiness and love, which I think to many people who haven't read a lot about like longevity, it might not be intuitive to them. But I think now with the 100-Year Life film on Netflix, they talk about that. And so it's like that community and being a part of something really matters. But so I want to dive into your healthy aging protocol that you've designed. So basically, correct me if I'm wrong, you've done all this research, you've talked to all these people, and this is how you've made your own version, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so then let's start with exercise. Within exercise, I love how deliberate you are. You're like speaking my language. You're like, I am doing strength training, and this is what I'm doing for strength training. And like the strength training is because, muscles matter, and we're gonna have sarcopenia as we get older, and that's why I'm doing this. And so like I want, like, so you've got the VO2 max, you've got the cardiovascular, you've got stability and stretching. Like, walk me through how you devised all of these things.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when most people think of exercise, they think of, like any exercise is better than none, which is true. And they also think of two main buckets, which is weight training and then cardio. They're like, sure, I should be building muscles, I should be lifting some weights, and then cardio is good for my health, which is all fair and true. But I wanted to design my workouts and exercise to be pretty deliberate for longevity, but also having fun, because I genuinely enjoy working out, and I also like playing a lot of tennis and running. So I did want to incorporate some of that as well. So my workout protocol is heavily borrowed from Peter Attia's. I've learned a lot from him about how to design your exercise regimen. And the way I started was like, initially I just started with working out. So it was like doing more of running, doing weight training. And then I said, okay, how do I be more deliberate about it? And then when you start looking at the science, VO2 max is actually one of the best predictors of longevity. For people who don't know, it's basically a test for your anaerobic capacity of your lungs. And one of the best ways to train that is high intensity interval training. So then after I started adding weights and cardio, I said, okay, let me start training for VO2 max and high intensity interval training too. And then I also started, and this is something I'm still working on, I started incorporating a lot more flexibility and mobility, balance exercises. I mean, I hear a lot about it, but unfortunately, I also broke my foot earlier this year. So I just realized the importance of it a lot more myself, training my foot. Yeah, it's been a bummer. So that's how I thought about all these different pillars. I said, okay, even when I'm weight training, I do want to be deliberate about my form, how many reps I get in, which muscles I exercise, and not having any pain, really. Like a lot of people end up having back pain because of poor form and all of that. The number one thing is injury prevention, which I've learned the hard way. And then I think the big things to be deliberate about is like the high intensity interval training and the flexibility training, which a lot of people ignore. And then tennis and hiking, all of that is just stuff I love to do. I mean, I think playing sports is a wonderful way to get a workout, but it's not a full substitute for all the other things you should be doing, which is like still lifting weights and getting your intensity interval training done. So I do focus on all of these pillars.
Well, variety is the spice of life, right? And so then, like, we've got the exercise kind of down and how you've approached that. How did you approach food? Was it kind of like a trial and error thing, or was it like a research and experiment thing? How did you approach deciding what food was going to be part of your healthy aging protocol?
It was a mix of both, and it's definitely evolved a ton over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, initially, so I think my most extreme was when I went like, this was actually, I like literally woke up one day and I'm like, I'm going to try the ketogenic diet. And I just like went full keto. And I mean, I started feeling like much, much better because I felt my energy levels being pretty constant. So, and since then I've pretty much evolved it a lot. It's focused currently on number one, getting my protein intake. Because one, I lift a lot, but also I think, especially after the age of 30, people start losing muscle mass naturally. And one of the ways to stop it is just making sure you have sufficient protein. And most people don't have that. So making sure I get my protein intake. I am vegetarian, but I do have eggs. So I'll have eggs and my whey protein. Then there's a ton of research on cruciferous vegetables. So think broccoli, kale, cauliflower. I make sure to get that in. Either through like the lentil dish that I make, which is recommended by Brian Johnson, that I'll get that in for lunch or dinner, whatever that is. And then I will have my eggs for protein as well. So it's a very clean diet, mostly focused on my vegetables, protein, and nuts, and some berries. The way it's evolved is really a bunch of research, but also what makes me feel good. I think with food, it's very intuitive. You know what's good and you know what's not good, and you know what makes your body feel good. Like, yeah, sure, like burgers make you feel good in the moment, but everyone knows they're not good. So it's a pretty simple rule of thumb. And I think the way to make progress with eating a cleaner diet, oh, by the way, I have a lot of leafy greens as well. Eating a cleaner diet is making step changes. So just making changes little by little, changing up maybe just your dinner, you start feeling better, then changing up your lunch or your breakfast or your fasting regimen. Doesn't have to be all in one go because it's really hard. It just doesn't work that way. Just making progress little by little.
I found the same, that it's really about experimentation and finding what feels right. But I found that supplementation was a bit challenging and I really needed help with that. And so I went to a precision nutritionist, and I'm still working with her on how to figure that out. How about you? How did you figure out how you're going to supplement what, how much, when, all of that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm very precise with my supplements. And I don't know if it's like I'm super scientific about it, about like when and how much to do it. I honestly don't know if the science is there yet either, but my supplements is also based on just doing research and following some people. I think Rhonda Patrick is really good with that. So like the biggest ones are fish oil, and I've borrowed my protocol from her there. And then a couple of other ones that is like, I learn about it, so I'll add it and like experiment with it. I am unfortunately not that, as I said, not that rigorous and scientific where like add a supplement and get a blood test to see what's being done, but I will get regular blood tests to make sure all my micronutrients are there where you need them to be. So I interviewed Dr. Bruce Ames on the podcast. I think he's like 96 or something now, in his 90s. And he was the pioneer in micronutrient triage theory, which is basically saying that because your body is not getting enough micronutrients through the food or the supplements you're consuming, it could be as bad as just like like suffering from cancer or some other disease, And that really distilled in me the importance of getting my micronutrients in. So I think the most basic thing is first getting a normal micronutrient test done. If you're deficient in something, start supplementing. And then on top of that, you can like add a few more and just, experiment and test it out. Like some are turmeric is good for inflammation and stuff. So just add it to your diet. Maybe it's fine. There are also, some of them are also pretty cheap. So it's not going to hurt you. A lot of these supplements aren't really going to hurt you. I will add though that like I am wary of a lot of companies that just promote supplements, especially things like NAD boosters or something like that, which are not fully backed by science and people are just trying to make money off of it. So I tend to stay away from that.
Okay, well, a big booster is sleep. Next item you've got on your protocol. Sleep's a big deal. Enough studies to show that sleep is one of the best human performance drugs there is out there, and the longevity lab that we can have naturally is sleep. So what's your sleep routine? How do you work on that?
Yeah, I'm not very consistent with timing. Sleep timing is something I am still working on and getting better at. I think I have become better actually in the last few months. So when I first started working on sleep, I was just like pretty sleep deprived because I never focused on sleep, and it was my early years of my career basically not getting enough sleep. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna start sleeping more, But currently my sleep routine is ideally trying to do a sauna or hot shower before bed because the warm temperature definitely helps boost your sleep. And then I keep all my screens away, my phone's on airplane mode. I do, and I use a cooling mattress. So I do like if I'm not at home, then it's just keeping the temperature pretty low, like 65 degrees or something like that. Cause I think it helps my sleep as well. And I typically just read before bed. So it's either a physical book with just like a small reading light, or just reading on my Kindle, which makes it super easy. And I've noticed that just reading for those 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just improves my sleep so much. I don't know what it is, but I'm reading this like nice story and I'll feel sleepy. I keep away my Kindle and like, boom, I'm fast asleep. So that's helped me a lot. And then I don't wake up to alarms. And I think that's helped me a lot as well. Like my body just naturally wakes up when it's well rested. To track my sleep, I have been using Fitbit for a while. I've recently started using Whoop as well. So I do get, I notice what's going wrong. I think it's like you can also just get a pulse on if you had too much junk food last night, like how did your body react? Or if you're working out too much, maybe your body needs a lot more sleep. So I am pretty careful about tracking my sleep, quite obsessed with that actually. And then when I wake up in the morning, I make sure to get my morning sunlight because that starts your circadian rhythm going. And that is also very effective at ensuring you fall asleep at your normal bedtime.
So now we're kind of getting into winter in the Northern Hemisphere. Do you use like a therapy lamp, a light therapy lamp in the morning, or are you still getting sunlight? How do you do that when it doesn't come naturally?
I'm lucky because I live in Florida and now moving to Texas, so I pretty much get sunlight most of the year.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm lucky with that, but I do recommend, using a light for people who don't get the sunlight in the morning. I think it's very beneficial.
And how many minutes do you do that kind of morning light therapy with a natural light? Like, do you stare out the window for 5 minutes, or do you just kind of like make sure that you're doing your preparations of breakfast or whatever it is in the morning by a window?
I usually step out for a walk. So I step out for a walk and actually get natural sunlight. And it doesn't have to be super long. It's like 10 minutes or so. It just depends, but it doesn't have to be super long.
So then for sleep, you use the Fitbit and the Whoop to track. And then for your exercise, I guess you use those two devices as well. Do you use anything else? Any other type of wearable or like a body composition scale or anything like that to track anything?
I do have a body composition scale. So I do have a Wittings. In terms of wearables, nothing else. I mean, I have an 8 Sleep, so that tracks my sleep too, but I don't think it's like very accurate with my sleep data. I get blood tests done, so I get my blood tests done pretty regularly, and I'll make sure to get the comprehensive ones sometimes, which are not covered by insurance in the US at least. And I will get my VO2 max tested and my DEXA scan done as well to just check my body composition.
And how often do you do the DEXA scan?
DEXA scan is something I haven't done it too often, but now I'm thinking of doing it every 6 months or so.
Okay, and then the VO2, I mean, so I have the VO2
but I think every year could also be fine.
Yeah, and then now for your VO2, for me, I have it on my Garmin, but how often do you go to get it done professionally?
I last got it done about 4 months ago, and I just haven't been able to work out so much because of my broken foot. But I do plan on getting it actually every 5 months or something like that, because that's something I am actively working on, just improving my score.
Well, that's right. You have to keep it up if you're going to be tracking it. And it's really good. I ask this is because I think it's kind of important for people to kind of see how other people are tracking things and how often they're looking at those things. So thanks for sharing that. And then oral health, I was excited to see that because most people don't really talk about their oral health, and oral health is quite important for your gut microbiome and in general for healthy aging. So tell me a bit about how you decided to include oral health as a thing you were going to focus on and what that includes, and your morning and your night routine.
Yeah, so oral health, I mean, outside of just brushing your teeth normally, is something I have incorporated only this year. So this is just part of my ongoing research. I think as I started learning about it, I realized that a lot of brain disease starts in your mouth. Or at least there is a linkage, where you can link a lot of oral cavity leading to maybe eventually Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And I said, some of it is probably like just not eating good food, but some of it is like, you should just take care of your oral health. So what I do currently is obviously brush my teeth morning and night. I will use an electric toothbrush. I've also started using the water pick, which feels great. By the way, I mean, you just feel much cleaner and fresher after using it. And then I will also floss my teeth, which is something I want to get better at as well. And I use a tongue scraper just to clean off my tongue. So It's not too extensive. I think it's something people can do pretty easily. Yes, it adds maybe an extra like 1 or 2 minutes to do the water pick and floss, but it feels fantastic.
Yeah, your protocol inspired me to get the tongue scraper. So I just didn't know which one I wanted, and I saw the one you had. I'm like, if she recommends it, this must be great. So I tried your tongue scraper, and I really love it. So that's something from you that I've incorporated into my routine. And so finally, you've got
That's great too.
In your protocol the happiness and love, and you didn't talk too much about it in your website, but I want to know how you approach this. What inspires you about this part of your healthy aging protocol?
I don't know. I mean, happiness and love is something that's very personal to everyone. And I think it's just something that when you're happy and when you're in love, you just feel it. And I think everyone knows when they're not feeling the best or they're going through a low period. And it impacts your mental psyche for sure. It also impacts your physical body. You're probably more likely to not go work out or just not feel your best self. In terms of, I don't really have a protocol here. I think it's more just like spending time with my partner every day. We eat dinner together. I mean, we spend all our weekends together. We pretty much we have really good conversations, and I love spending time with him. It's like fantastic. And happiness, and then obviously talk to my family regularly, talk to my friends regularly. And I think a huge part of happiness, obviously, is the community aspect of it. But the other aspect is also just working on something you really love to do. It's about just how you're spending your time. Also, I think health and happiness are very interrelated, because even if other things in your life are not going well, but you do feel healthy and you've been working out. I mean, there's science behind this too. Your brain chemistry just feels happier. You have the endorphins rush after working out. So it's a very, like if you start going to the science, which I don't think is there yet, it's probably like pretty complex. So it's just a mood. I think it's very personal for people. And I think it is something that people should start thinking about actively in terms of their health. Like if you're not happy, you should make it a priority. It is a priority to work on. It's not just about working on your career and making money. It is also about figuring out what makes you happy, because that impacts your health. Then, but also you'll just feel much better.
Yeah. So it sounds like you acknowledge that community is important, that love is important, and you are kind of aware about what makes you happy, and you are being deliberate about it. And so you're being deliberate about spending time with your partner and being deliberate about connecting with your family. And so that kind of keeps it going.
That's right. But I won't say it's like deliberate in terms of like I have a schedule, like, I have to call up my family at this time, or like if one day my husband and I don't have dinner together, it's the end of the world. It's like, it's about just, for me at least, it's about just keeping it natural. I think different people have different things. Like some people might be super busy and maybe they have to schedule stuff. But for me, it's just part of my normal life. And it's something that I like to do, and I naturally end up doing it.
Well, that's really awesome. So my last question for you, I'm really curious. You're reading a lot of different things. What is something that you saw that piqued your interest, that you thought, this is really interesting. I haven't thought about this as part of longevity and healthy aging, and this is something I want to research next, or I want to incorporate next?
Yeah, I think top of mind for me has been a lot of movement flexibility exercises. So pediatria talks a lot about this. There's something called DNS, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, it was started in Prague. And it was pretty much started to help kids who were suffering from movement disorder. But then it branched out to adults as well, because as we start getting older, we lose a lot of our flexibility, and we're not rolling on the floor anymore. We're not using so many of our body systems. This is very top of mind for me to start incorporating a lot more movement exercises, making my body a lot more flexible, making sure I have the options to use different body parts that maybe I'm not aware of. So I'm going to start working with a couple of people on this. And I think it's a very overlooked part of health, and probably a reason a lot of people end up having a lot of body pain and injuries and like things that they ignore, which builds up in their later years. And I'm excited to give it a shot and see if it makes a difference.
Well, I'm excited to see when you report on that. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your healthy aging protocol, and I look forward to following more on your newsletter and your podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lydia. It was really fun talking to you.
This series is meant to capture personal stories of individual healthy aging protocols and is for informational purposes only, and it does not constitute providing medical advice or professional services. Those seeking personal medical advice should consult with a licensed healthcare practitioner. If you'd like to keep up with Aastha's latest and greatest, you can find her on Twitter or X at Live Longer World, and you can find her on LinkedIn and on her YouTube channel, Live Longer World, where she puts her podcast interviews with various scientists in the longevity space. And then you can find her newsletter and all other articles at livelongerworld.com.